Better is better than worse. All right. Is that working now? Oh, I hear myself. Good? Good? All right. Oh, welcome. Oh. Sorry, I think this is my 12th day in a row working at the hospital, so if I'm a little glassy-eyed, just all right. Let's have prayer. Let's have prayer before. Is this on? There's like an echo or something. Let's have prayer before we start. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this weekend that we have, and we thank you, Lord, for the opportunities that we have today, and that we can learn more about how to take care of the bodies that you have given us. Heavenly Father, we just pray that you will please watch over us today and just help me to give the message that you want me to give. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Exercise. Some people hate it and some people love it. Use it or lose it. It's still really loud. Is it still kind of loud? Sounds okay. I feel like I'm echoey. Maybe it's just where I'm standing. Well, here's some cartoons. Don't talk to me about exercise. I swam every day for 9 months, and still I was born with chubby thighs. And then I exercised once, but I found out I was allergic to it. My skin flushed, my heart raced, I got sweaty and short of breath. Very dangerous. Different people see exercise in different ways. I don't think anyone disagrees that exercise to some extent is good for you. I think most of the problems are just getting it done. But here's some benefits of exercise. The United States, some statistics, about 1 in 5 people in the adults in the United States take part in exercise each day. Only about 23% of adults do the recommended amount of exercising each week. But even though only a small percentage of the country actually exercises, we spend about $32 billion in the gym, health, and fitness market. And even around the world, people don't get as much exercise as they should. Really busy slide. There's a lot more information. I could have added a whole lot more. Exercise and cancer. Exercise has been shown, and this is a meta-analysis, is actually a higher level of research. It's lots of different research papers that they all put together and actually find an assessment based on lots of different research papers, because sometimes one research paper will be skewed one way or the other, but if you get a whole bunch of them, you can tell if there's really a good association or not. And for breast cancer, if you exercise, there's up to 20 or so, 12 to 21% decreased risk of breast cancer if you are very physically active. Okay. Colon cancer, about 19-20% decreased risk of colon cancer. Endometrial cancer, about 20% decreased risk. These are all meta-analyses type research papers. Esophageal cancer, about 20% decrease as well. Kidney cancer, one study says 12%, another study says up to 23% decrease in kidney cancer. Stomach cancer, 19%, so around 20% mark again. Bladder cancer, 15% decrease in risk. And that's the thing is you get all of these benefits. You don't just get to pick one. I'm just going to decrease my risk for breast cancer or colon cancer. You decrease your risk for all of these cancers across the board just by being physically active, an adequate amount. And then here's some highlights with the exercise and cancer survival. So if you survive cancer and you exercise, you actually have a lot higher chance of not dying from cancer than if you didn't exercise. So with breast cancer, 40% decreased risk of death from breast cancer after you've been diagnosed with breast cancer. So if you come in, they say, yep, you've got breast cancer. If you actually exercise an adequate amount, the chances of you dying from the breast cancer diagnosis is 40% less than if you didn't exercise. And it's a 42% decreased risk of death from any cause. So sometimes people get breast cancer and then they die of a heart attack or they die of a stroke or something else. Exercise, once you've been diagnosed with cancer, actually decreases your risk from dying from any other causes, not just from breast cancer. Colorectal cancer, same thing, 30% decreased risk of death from colorectal cancer. So that's after they found it. So they found cancer in you. If you're a person who exercises, your chances of dying from that cancer is 30% lower than someone who didn't exercise. And it also decreases your overall risk of death from any cause by almost 40%. Prostate cancer, same thing, lots of data, and there's so much out there. If you get cancer, the oncologist will give you a bunch of paperwork, and one of those things is exercise recommendations. Okay, it's not just because they want your heart to be healthy. There's actually tons and tons of research that shows that your chance of surviving cancer significantly increases if you exercise. Then everyone knows about exercising your heart, so I just put a little bit up there. This one here, I didn't put the source, but if you decrease your exercise, so there's a calculation here, and I'm not going to go through all of the calculations, but if you're normally someone who exercises a certain amount and you drop it down more than a certain amount, your chances of dying actually goes up. It can go up to 70-ish% just by decreasing the amount of exercise. So you'll see this a lot of times in people as they get older. They're more active and younger age, middle age, and as they get older, they significantly decrease their activity. The people who decrease their activity have up to a 70-75% chance of increased risk of dying. There's this really interesting study that showed that for middle-aged and older people, the people who could stand on one leg for 10 seconds or longer, let's see. So the people who couldn't stand on one leg for 10 seconds had an 84% increased risk of death in the next 10 years compared to people their age who could actually stand on one foot for 10 seconds or longer. And a lot of that is the balance and everything and the strength that comes with regular exercise. We're actually starting to use that in some of the clinics to see what your risk of death in the next 10 years could be. Another study showed that this was a Harvard School of Public Health, running more than 1 hour a week. So that's 12 minutes a day for 5 days a week. Decrease your risk for heart disease by 42%. If you walk more than 30 minutes a day, you can decrease your risk for heart disease by 18%, and that's just walking. That's not extremely vigorous exercise. 30 minutes of weight training also decreases your risk. So they've found that it's not necessarily running or weightlifting. It's like any exercise almost has shown survival benefit for from heart disease. And this one in women, 1 hour a week of walking reduced your risk of heart disease by 50%. It cut your risk in half by just
1 hour a week.
1 hour a week. So that's if you did 12 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So that's nothing. I mean, that, you know, you can get 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes of walking, you know, but that's a huge, huge decrease, all other things being equal, in your heart disease risk. Let's see, people who've had heart attacks. So after you've had heart attacks, if you actually go on exercise regimen, actually build up your exercise, your chance of dying, because when people have heart attacks, they're very high risk for getting more heart attacks and dying in their sleep and other stuff happening. You're 20 to 25% less likely to die after you've had a big heart attack if you actually started exercising. And that's why a lot of cardiology places will actually do cardiovascular. It's pretty much exercise. They have fancy names for it, but they try to get you into a program to increase your chances of surviving. This is from the American Heart Association. They estimate that about 35%, so about a third of heart attacks, dying from heart attacks, about a third of the people who die from heart attacks die because of physical inactivity. Okay, so maybe the other 2/3 are more from diet and other things. Exercise and diabetes. What time is it? Okay. So they've compared diabetes to metformin. So metformin, once you've gotten diabetes or you have something called pre-diabetes, they give you metformin. It's the standard of care to prevent you from getting diabetes. Okay, and if you have pre-diabetes, so real early, not quite diabetes, it's almost diabetes, and you take metformin, your chances of not developing diabetes is about 30%.
Doing what?
Taking metformin, taking the medicine. Yeah, so if they say, oh, you're pre-diabetic, take metformin, because that's the standard of care.
Pre-diabetic,
Mm-hmm.
they already go right now, I'm diabetic.
Yeah. So it decreases your risk of developing diabetes by about 30%. Regular exercise decreases your risk of developing diabetes by almost 60%. So it's almost double the effect of metformin, and you don't have to pay for exercise. You don't get all the side effects of metformin, all the nausea, the vomiting. It causes a lot of diarrhea in a lot of people. Causes a lot of appetite loss and other stuff like that. You don't get any of those side effects with exercise, and it's twice as effective as metformin, twice as effective as the standard of care, medication-wise, for preventing diabetes. Okay, so something that's free works twice as good as a pill that you pay for. And then on top of that, exercise can actually reverse diabetes. So if you have diabetes, to a certain extent, you know, obviously exercise doesn't give you a new pancreas and doesn't completely change your body. It doesn't make you younger. But exercise to an extent can actually reverse diabetes, especially if you combine it with the right diet and other health things. But it shows that it improves insulin function. So you can exercise for a half hour, and the benefits that it does for your diabetes can last up to 16 hours. Okay, so that little bit of time investment in exercise actually helps you for almost the whole day. Here's an MRI of two 70-year-olds. This is the cross section. If you cut their thigh, you know, open and looked at it, that's what the MRI slice does. This is the inactive 70-year-old. So there's that little bone right there. That's your big femur bone down your thigh. All that black stuff is muscle, and then there's all that white stuff is fat. Here's a very active 70-year-old. I think this person's actually a triathlete and does triathlons and stuff. Look how much bigger their bone is. Okay, the likelihood of this guy getting osteoporosis versus this one, significantly different. A lot more muscle, lot less fat. Okay, and it's the muscle that really helps burn the sugar that decreases your chances for getting diabetes. And then exercise and mental health. There's a study from the British Journal of Sports Medicine. They actually compared exercise with counseling. So there's behavioral counseling and all of that stuff. And then there's also all of these standard depression medications. And they found that exercise was 1.5 times more effective than counseling or medications. So if you have issues with depression, anxiety, all of that, exercise actually, at least from this article, shows that it's more effective than actually getting counseling or taking pills for depression or anxiety.
I actually heard too that B12 helps depression.
It can, yeah, especially if you're low in B12. If you're already high in B12, then it might not do as much.
I had to go for counseling and I'm driving home, turn the radio on, they said that. I thought, oh, that's an easy thing to do.
Yep, yeah, it's a very easy fix, and especially if people are vegetarian. They might be low in B12, so that might be something you might need to supplement.
But when I got it, he said you need to take all the Bs.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And then there's addiction. So they've done studies with addiction, looking at exercise and mental health, and they found that the drug rehab programs that actually incorporate exercise as part of drug rehab actually have better success than the drug rehabs that don't incorporate exercise. So your chances of actually doing better with getting rid of an addiction, exercise can play a big role. And then there's lots of other research on exercise that improves memory and slows the cognitive decline. Things like dementia and stuff like that, it can actually slow that down. What? Oh, okay. And then there's more information, and this is just kind of a quick blurb. It decreases your risk for stroke if you walk more than 12 miles. So that's about 2 miles a day, 6 days a week. So that's about 30-40 minutes of walking per day for 6 days a week. Can decrease your risk of stroke up to 29%. It obviously helps with osteoporosis, because osteoporosis is your bones getting weak, but the more you exercise, your bones get stronger. Okay, so it'll help with osteoporosis. It can help to a point with some types of arthritis. One study shows that it can help decrease the symptoms. It doesn't take the arthritis away, but what it does is it strengthens the muscles around the joint. Okay, so you don't have as much grinding of the joint, and it'll help decrease the symptoms if you have exercise. And obviously it helps with obesity. That's why we have such a big gym system in this country. All right. So here's really the question: is how much exercise do I need? Our government says that you need, at minimum, moderate intensity exercise is 150 to 300 minutes per week. So if you exercised 5 days a week, that's about a half hour to an hour of exercise 5 days a week. If you do high intensity exercise, it's half of that. Okay, so 15 to 30 minutes every day, 5 days a week of high intensity exercise. So, well, the question then becomes, well, what's moderate intensity exercise and what's high intensity exercise? So here's what you do. This is the fancy calculation if you want to get super geeked out into it. So what you first do is you calculate your maximum heart rate. So that's supposed to be 220. All right. Yeah, so 220 minus your age. Okay, so let's say I'm 40 years old. That's supposed to be 220. 220 minus 40, that will give me 180. So 180 is my max heart rate, so I really don't want to go over 180. Okay, moderate exercise is about 50%. So with moderate exercise, just think 50%, and high intensity exercise, think 75%. So if I was counting my pulse as I was exercising, 50% of 180 is 90 beats per minute. So if I was walking and my heart rate was 90 to 100 beats per minute, that's considered moderate exercise. Okay, and if I was going like 140, 150, yeah, is my math right? Yeah, around 140 or so with my pulse, then that would be high intensity exercise. Okay. Any questions about that? No? Okay. All right, and with that said, I have a blurb. Talk to your doctor anytime you want to start an exercise regimen. There's lots of medicines, especially as people get older. There's a lot of blood pressure medicines that can mess with your heart, that can change the way your heart rate can go up and down and all of that stuff. And if you start exercising and you don't realize that there's all these medicines on board, it can start causing problems. Okay, so you need to talk to your doctor, make sure that there's not any medicines that could potentially interact with what you do for exercise. And
some of the medicine gives you a cough you can't get rid of.
yes. There's a couple of them that will.
Lisinopril.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I am on medicine. I'm on losartan now. It's
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. So there's lots of side effects. Aspirin. People die from aspirin, and that's over the counter. So every single medicine has its own side effects. But you need to talk to your doctor, and you also don't want to start exercising super hard right off the bat. If you're not used to exercising and you start really exercising hard, that could potentially stress your heart out too much and cause problems.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If you're taking medicine, you've got blood pressure and heart medicine and blood thinner and all that good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
is there any chance of getting off that stuff
Mm-hmm.
eventually?
Yeah.
Take
So-
it rest of your life?
So the medicines that you take, there are certain specific reasons for medication. So they don't just give you medicine. There has to be a very specific reason for it. So with blood pressure medicine, they don't give you blood pressure medicine unless your blood pressure is elevated. Unless your blood pressure is high. They don't give you diabetes medicine unless your sugars are to the point where you're diabetic. Okay, so if you can actually change your lifestyle, because exercising and eating right and sleep and all the other things with a new start that we're going to be talking about, all of those can help actually decreasing all of these issues. Okay, it can help decrease your cholesterol, decrease your blood pressure, improve your sugars. Okay, if your sugars start getting better, then you don't need as much diabetes medicine. If your blood pressure gets better, you don't need as much blood pressure medicine, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the thing is there's only so much that you can do, once you get past a certain stage of your life. But even if you're, even as you get older, your activity will still help. It will still help. So even people who start exercising in their late 60s, 70s, 80s, there's still benefit that their body gets from that. It's not as much as if they started in their 40s, but it still does something to help their system.
I had something like that, diabetes. Diabetes is not caused by sugar, it's caused by the fat, which doesn't let the nutrition go through the wall of the stomach into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
I was shocked to hear that.
Yeah, there's a few different theories on how diabetes starts, because it seems to start differently in different people and all of that. So yeah, there's some data that shows that.
Is there a cure for that, diabetes?
It depends. Yeah, it depends. It depends on what kind of diabetes you have, and it depends on how bad it is, and it also depends on how much your body, each person's body can compensate a certain amount. Okay, so for some people, they're definitely able to reverse it if they make lifestyle changes. Someone who's in their 50s with diabetes, the likelihood of them reversing diabetes is a lot better chances than someone who was 85, for example. Okay, so the body can only do so much once it gets past a certain point, but it can still do stuff.
Does the food you eat have the effect on the diabetes that you eat?
Yep. Absolutely.
Like meats or you eat vegetables all the time.
So the things that seem to make your risk for diabetes worse are things that cause inflammation in your system. So sweets, a lot of sweets will do that. They'll increase the inflammation and increase your risk for diabetes. There's some information that shows that red meats can also do that over time, especially the processed meats like deli meats and sausages, hot dogs, stuff like that. The stuff that has a lot of preservatives in it seems to increase your risk for inflammation and all of that, and increase your risk for developing diabetes and heart problems and all of that. Okay, so cutting back on all of that definitely decreases your risk for developing all the bad problems. And here's a rule of thumb if you're not a person that likes to calculate all the math. So if you can walk and talk, then you're probably in your exercise zone. If you can exercise and talk, you're probably in your exercise zone. If you can exercise and sing, then you're probably not exercising hard enough. Okay? If you exercise and you're gasping between words and phrases, you're exercising too hard. Okay? So that's kind of a rule of thumb that you could use to kind of get you in the ballpark, is you don't want to just walk and be able to sing, because then you're not exercising, or you're not active enough. You want to still be able to talk, though, and not overdo it. And people ask, what's the best exercise? Some people say, oh, is running good? What about lifting weights? What about things like yoga, Pilates, stretching, fast twitch versus slow twitch muscle fibers? There's a lot of discussion that can go into that. Honestly, I tell most people, just start doing something. But the best is actually a combination of both. You want endurance training seems to help your heart more, so running and walking for longer distances. And then the strength training, so weights, seems to help with other things too, like helping with osteoporosis and arthritis and other stuff like that. But actually both strength training and endurance training exercises helps in some way, helps all of that. So if you're just going to do one or the other, it'll still help. It's best to do both.
So therefore you tell me I can go home and do 50-pound weights, right?
If you can do it. Yeah, but what I would do is just start slow, because usually people get real motivated and they'll go out and they'll do a bunch of stuff, and then 24 hours later their muscles are hurting and everything's hurting and their joints are hurting, and they're like, well, I'm miserable, I'm not going to do that again. And then they just kind of fall off the bandwagon. So really what you want to do is just build up to it. A baby doesn't learn to run right off the bat. It learns to crawl first, and then it learns to walk, and then it learns to run. So.
Used to the church would say to walk a mile a day, and I said, oh, that's easy. I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it really helped a lot. I was amazed.
Yeah.
But now I have to be watched up to my food, because while I'm at home, somebody goes in there and poisons stuff. I have to drag everything with me wherever I go, so I stay home.
Yeah.
But outside, as soon as the weather was nice, I go around the yard.
Yep.
And dig some, try to get a garden. I call it my yard walk.
Yeah, well, you can just walk around your yard over and over again and try to get 10,000 steps.
They also said, when he was younger, no gain, no pain. Well, no pain, no gain.
Yes.
But now it's no grain, no gain at our age.
And no pain, no gain to an extent, because if you get disabled from the pain, then that obviously undoes everything that you wanted. So you don't want to disable yourself. Let's see. Yeah, so here's the caveat. If you don't normally exercise routinely and you suddenly start a high-intensity workout, it could kill you. Okay, especially if you're older, if you have heart problems, stuff like that. If you put too much stress on your heart without building up to it, it can push you over to something like a heart attack. So talk to your doctor. Once again, there's the caveat, the legal statement. Talk to your doctor about your medical conditions and how to exercise and how to start. But really the rule of thumb is just start slow and build up. If you listen to your body will tell you. Different kind of exercise. There's another form of exercise that has even greater rewards. The rewards of this exercise is 100% decreased risk of mortality. Regularly exercise your faith. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. And that's it.
No, this is global warming.
What's that?
This is global warming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed at Walmart, the clothes they have there. Instead of nice cotton that keeps us cool, they have polyester in it. Polyester this and polyester that. It's almost like they're trying to kill us.
Yeah, well.
It makes heat and it just keeps it at you. And I also heard something, I don't know if I heard it on TV or if I read it, that breast cancer can be caused by bras which are too hot.
By what? That's too hard.
Bras.
Bras?
Yeah, I was amazed at what they all come up with. But they don't have easy bras anymore. Everything is warm stuff.
Yeah.
It's garbage. The whole store is full of garbage.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really know all the reasons why breast cancer happens. But one of the theories is that the breast tissue is getting irritated over and over and over again. And so you start to sometimes create cancer cells and stuff that keep growing. But yeah.
They don't know what causes it?
No. Well, we know what causes cancer is we're making cancer all the time. Okay, your body is making cancer cells every day. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because cancer is just your regular cells, and then the DNA gets damaged. So if you have a cell and the DNA gets damaged, and it keeps growing, it can turn to cancer. Okay. The thing is your immune system has a way of killing cancer cells. Okay. So from the very get-go, from the day you're born, your body intermittently will have cancer cells here and there, but your immune system actually knows how to find them and kill them. So if you actually do things with your health that boost your immune system, eating right, exercising, sleeping, drinking plenty of water, stuff like that, boost your immune system, it seems to decrease your risk for getting cancer because your immune system finds those cancer cells before they turn into full-blown cancer and can kill them off.
I noticed too when you're sleeping, you go to bed at a certain time,
Mm-hmm.
and you sleep real good all night, your sugar goes down.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then again, if you're not exercising and you're agitated or something,
Mm-hmm.
diabetes goes up.
Yep. Yeah, so your body, when you're under stress, it'll release stress hormones into your system when you're stressed, and the stress hormones make the sugar go up. Okay, so let's say, because sugar is food for my muscles. Okay, food for my brain, food for my muscles, food for the different cells of my body. If a lion came at me, okay, I'm going to need to use my muscles really fast to run. So the body is designed when you release stress hormones Your sugar goes up because it's anticipating that you're going to need all that sugar to do something. Okay, to run, to fight, to do whatever else. Okay, the problem is when stress hormones go up and you don't do anything. You're just stressed from your job, or you're just stressed from anxiety, or you're stressed because someone, a family member died or something else. Your sugar goes up, but you're not burning it off because you're not really using your muscles, and then that sugar just kind of floats around in there and starts causing problems.
What makes your sugar go low? I mean, even though, say, if I'd eat maybe a donut, maybe a half hour, an hour or so later,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all I ate, and it just drops. Or
Yeah.
you eat a certain amount of food, after so many hours, it'll drop down.
Yep.
So, what's the deal on that? How can you keep it in a happy range?
Yeah.
Like if it's, 200 now, and a couple hours later, it's 110.
Yeah. Well, 110 is what it that's closer to what it should be. Most people's average sugar is between 70 and 100 for normal people without diabetes.
What is
Okay.
that?
Was that?
What is that? What sugar number?
Well, I mean, if it's too high or too low, it causes problems.
If it's over 100, say 150, it's kind of bad, or what would you say?
Yes, but usually, with diabetes, you can't just go off of one number. You have to look at the pattern over a long period of time, because every once in a while your sugar is going to go up with whatever you ate. Right, but I mean, sometimes it'll go up higher than others.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe
but
a slice of bread, maybe, it'll go up 300,
yeah,
I guess because it's the sugar in the bread. And
right.
the starch.
Well, everyone's sugar goes up when they eat.
When they eat.
When I eat something, when anyone eats something, the sugar in your blood just naturally goes up because your gut is pulling that sugar from what you ate and putting it in the blood. The problem with diabetes is not that your sugar went up. The problem with diabetes is that you don't have the insulin and all of that to burn off and use that sugar. So instead of that sugar getting used up and your sugar, because it'll go up when you eat, and then your body's supposed to use it to where it comes back down to where it needs to be.
That's when you exercise.
Right, you're exercising or taking your insulin or whatever else. But if you don't do that, then it spikes up and then it just stays up. Okay, or it comes down just a little bit, but it's still high. That's when it causes problems, is when it doesn't come back down. It's supposed to come back down. Your body's supposed to use it up. But with diabetes, it doesn't use it up like it's supposed to, so it just stays high for day after day after day, and you do that over the course of a few years, and it causes problems. Yep.
I have a question on the exercise statistics that you were showing at the beginning. Oftentimes it'll say if you exercise 30 minutes a day, then your risk drops by however much, right?
Right.
Does that work on kind of a linear scale? So if you exercise 15 minutes, do you get half of it, or is it like there's a certain threshold of exercise you have to hit before the benefit really kicks in?
So a lot of this data, they actually break the participants out into either quartiles or quintiles of exercise. Okay, and they kind of compare the highest quintile of exercising people versus the lowest quintile. So it's more of a worst versus best case scenarios. But in terms of how much minimum, the government with their research says moderate exercise 150 to 300 minutes per week is the minimum that they recommend. So I mean, you do get some benefit even if you don't do that much. There's data that does show that, but in terms of how much you get, like it's in that gray zone where you're not really sure if,
I experienced twice no blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like the energy was totally really turn out.
Yep.
It was scary.
Well, yeah, that's because your brain and your muscles function by using sugar. And so if you don't have enough sugar, if your sugar is too low, that's why you get real tired and weak and sleepy. Then you get the shakes, and then you get the cold sweats. All of that starts happening. Mm-hmm.
But I had people come and help me at my house, and then they ate lunch, and they said, come and join us. I went and joined them, and I forgot all about eating, and we started working, I forgot. And at 5 o'clock, before they left, I was out of energy. It was scary.
Yeah, if you take diabetes medicine, some of these medicines, each medicine's different, but some of these medicines, they stay in your system for 12 hours or sometimes even longer.
I'm not
So,
medicine yet. And I went to the hospital because of my eye problem.
mhm.
They put me on a diabetic diet, and they asked me what I wanted. I said, I have no idea. And I was on this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah. Well, most hospitals' diabetic diet is it's not really good diabetic diets. Man, it smells good.
Are you planning to have some exercise classes here?
Was that?
Teach us what we need to do, what we can do.
Well, that would be an interesting idea. I haven't planned to do it, but that might be something. Would you like to start something like that? Yeah.
I have to go once a week to 7 performance for exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And I have arthritis, osteoporosis, sleep apnea,
Mm-hmm.
heart disease, which makes it tired, insomnia on top of it.
Yep.
And I had COVID-19. My body is so tired, and on top of it, I have to worry about the poison in my food. And I go home, I don't know what I can use or not.
Yeah.
I've been poisoned many times. It's a miracle I'm still alive, really.
Well, God still has plans for you.
They told me when they did the sleep apnea test, your organs don't want you to die. I had to laugh at that. It's God who doesn't want us to die.
Yep. Well, any other questions about exercise? Well, I'm standing here eating this really good food.
Can you show us an exercise? What helps osteoporosis and arthritis?
I guess I should go up and, so if they can hear on, well, I can just stay here. What we have today, this is high protein food, because you need a lot of protein if you're gonna exercise, is that right? Exercising uses, you need to have the protein to build your muscle. Anyway, so we chose high protein foods, the red lentils has a good bit of protein in it. And then these energy bites, that's what we call them. It's peanut butter, it's got fruit as a sweetener, honey as well, but there's no sugar, other than a few little chocolate chips. I did that for Emma's sake. She likes those little chocolate chips, so I just put a few in, but they're very sweet.
Lately, I'm hungry after I'm eating.
Oh.
What can I do?
That soup's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think
It's a red lentil curry. It's an Indian dish. Your favorite in our house.
some of the food has stuff in it, chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's called when I go to the house and I'm hungry and I don't know what I'm hungry for. I don't know what chemicals I do that. They have, what is that called? Natural flavor that's poison. It's almost in everything. They never tell you what natural flavor it is. But Phyllis gave me a book one time to read, and it says natural flavor is poisoning.
I didn't have time to get a recipe for either of these ready, but if you're interested in it, I can bring it to church.
about insulin resistant? How does that work?
What do you mean?
Well, you have to take your insulin and if your sugar's high or it's low. I'm not sure what insulin. Is that enough medicine goes into the cell to take care of the sugar or what? Or less?
Sorry.
Takes a while to chew those.
Energy bites. We definitely took a good bite.
And they'll give you some energy evening.
So there's two different types of diabetes that involve sugar. There's type 1 and type 2. Actually, technically there's more, but most. Anyway, two different types. And type 2 is the one that most people have. Okay, the type 1 is like a kid that'll get sick and then the organ that is supposed to make their insulin gets damaged. And then now they're stuck with diabetes because they can't make their own insulin. That's type 1. But most people are type 2, and all of that is insulin resistance. So if you're a type 2 diabetic, you have insulin resistance.
Is there different reasons for getting diabetic?
Well, with insulin resistance, it's because so you have an organ right in here called your pancreas, and it makes insulin for you 24 hours a day. It's checking your blood sugars every second of every single day that you're alive, and it puts out just the right amount of insulin to deal with that sugar. So you see these people that check their sugars, 2, 3, 4 times a day. Your body checks your own sugar every second of every day and adjusts and readjusts your insulin. Okay? So you checking your sugars 4 times a day is nothing close to what your body does. Okay? So you'll have the fluctuations. But what happens is, if you don't treat your body right, your pancreas ends up not being able to produce any more insulin. It burns itself out.
Okay, how do I treat my body? What do I do when I don't do treat it right?
Well, when you don't exercise and you eat bad food and all of that. Okay. So the things that make you gain weight are also the things that can hurt your pancreas. A lot of these sweet drinks, the chips, the processed meat, all of these different processed foods, it makes your pancreas work harder. So if it's having to work a whole lot harder than it's supposed to, and you do that over years.
Okay, could you get together and write down what foods we can eat, what food we should leave alone?
Yeah, we talked about it the last couple of meetings.
On the exercise,
But the things that you eat are the things that God made. So God didn't make potato chips.
God wasn't needed.
Right, so God made potatoes, God didn't make potato chips.
Right.
God made oranges, He didn't make orange juice. Okay, God made, if you were a meat eater, it's one thing to eat fresh meat versus sausages, for example, because the sausages and the deli meats have a lot of preservatives in it. So the further you get from what God has made, the worse it is for your body. Okay, God made the sweet stuff and sugar cane and corn and different things like that, but God didn't make high fructose corn syrup in bottles. Okay? But people will do that, is they'll drink water and corn syrup, okay? Because that's what sodas are. Sodas are water with corn syrup and flavor. Okay, so it's, you don't need a big fancy list. You just have to look at what you're eating, and the closer it is to what God made, the better it is for you.
That's why you don't need no choice.
It's a favorite with us. We like it.
All the way.
No, you want some more? Yeah. Bring this more. You ladies want any more? No? Okay. You want more? Okay.
Right. Well, any other questions?
I eat cream of wheat and cocoa wheat,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems to do me pretty good. But then I put berries in my cream of wheat,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I just eat it.
Just
Just
every
because
time,
of
is it how
Yeah.
expensive some to eat?
But I miss that sugar though.
We're trying to make it based
Well,
on what
you're-
it's about.
The thing is the food companies, the companies that make all these chips and the drinks and all these processed foods, they do a lot of research to figure out what cooks people's appetites. Okay, so,
Hey, I can tell you one that really gets you is Coke.
yeah, so they design their food. It's almost like they're trying to make you addicted to it.
So you buy it.
So you keep going back and buying more and more and more and more. But that's the thing, is you have to watch out for that, because it's almost like they're sneaking in and messing with you without you knowing.
It's hard to break that habit. though.
It is, because your brain is wired for sweets and salt and fat.
What about the aspartame that they put in soda instead of sugar?
Yeah. So they used to think that it was okay, and now they're starting to find out more and more that it causes other problems.
Eat them, Mark, I've been working